Hello, good morning. Welcome back to the Reaper Blog Community Hangout. This is number 38, I want to say. I think it's 38 weeks in a row, except for that 1 week. Pretty good. Still lots more to do this year. The plan today is to kind of catch up on some industry news. There's a bunch of kind of interesting things that have happened in the past week or two. That's about it. Answering your questions other than that. Yeah, Reaper 7 is in the works. Still a ways away, I think. I don't think there's any rush for it. I know that it's not ready. It'd be unfortunate if they release it before it's ready. I think that would be a pretty big mistake. Hope everyone's had a good week. Maybe you've got to make some music. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you've gone out and done something interesting. Not a lot has happened here. Busy regardless. Let me know if this is your first stream. I've barely touched my guitars and basses this week. I may have played about an hour. Played my Poly D a bunch yesterday and the day before. Yeah, but other than that, not a whole lot. Somehow just out of time this week. And links to the news topics will be added to the description of the stream or video. Let's start with some mostly good news, I guess. Shure released a new mic, the Shure SM7DB, which is the Shure SM7B with a built-in two-stage preamp, which is licensed technology from Cloud microphones. So the Cloud Lifter is built into the new Shure SM7DB. I think it's a silly name. It's still an expensive mic, for sure. No pun intended there. Accidental. But yeah, if we look at the back, there is the typical low cut and mid bump switches, plus a bypass and the plus 18 or plus 28 dB preamp, which is a lot of gain, probably more than needed. Most interfaces or preamps that have come out in the past few years can handle the Shure SM7B straight up. But a lot of people did get cloud lifters or FET heads or boost things, either to reduce the noise or for convenience. This is an idea that just came so late. But now that it's finally here, if you are in the market for getting an SM7B, consider this one, because it seems to sound the same, plus be a little more convenient. The Shure SM7B has always been an expensive mic. They retain resale value very well. As far as I know, there's no fake versions of them. And a lot of companies have recently started imitating it, making things that even look and sound the same, or look the same, but then add some new features. I'm surprised this took so long, but yeah, glad that there's a new modern option, I guess. If you already have a Shure SM7B and a FET head or a cloud lift or something like that, you don't need to switch it out for something else, but only if you're, in the market for some new dynamic mic. So that's the Shure SM7B. Let's go to the next new product announcement. That is from Softube, the Console 1 Channel Mark III. I'm still wondering why they call it the Console 1 when this is now version 3. But whatever. It actually looks really great. So this is a plug-in controller and DAW controller. No faders, but they have a separate fader controller. There's track selection up at the top. There's different colors for showing like track labels, things like that. There's 2 displays, which can be switched to different sorts of views, from an EQ view, gain reduction, or input-output meters, things like that. Multiple plugins that this now controls. So here's the new plugin interface. They've got the core shape and panner, vintage, modern EQs. You can have 2 EQs on a channel now, separately controlled, completely independent. Compression, master, drive, and character controls. Seems very, very cool. It's not cheap. This is going to be like $1,000. If you ever thought about a DIY version of something like this, it's still going to be $1,000. So great software and hardware integration, compatible with all the universal audio plugins as well as the Softube plugins. So very flexible, and supposed to be a tool you can use with barely having to move the mouse. So we'll see. I think it looks really good, and there are so many years into this Console 1 system that it's actually going to be very good right out of the box. That's the Softube Console 1 Channel Mark III that's coming later this year. It's expensive tech. Control surfaces are always expensive. Yeah, going back to the SM7B, I don't use a booster with mine. Mine's going straight into the Wave XLR interface, and the gain is at like, I don't know, 1 o'clock position, so there's plenty of gain. I can go much further, and I'm hitting minus 10 dB in OBS, so more than loud enough. Anyway, moving on, the next thing is Bitwig and Presonus have a new Daw Project format. So this is an DAW interchange file format, so you can start a project in Bitwig, take it to Studio One, or vice versa, and yeah, just more of a universal kind of standard. Because switching DAWs is always an issue. There's a little chart here comparing like AAF to MIDI and other things. This is supposed to support VST2, VST3, audio unit, and clap format. Any of the built-in EQ and compression and stuff like that should be like cross-compatible. So like the stock EQs and things like that should, if you start it with the Bitwig stock EQ, you can open it up in Studio One, and we use the Studio One EQ with the same settings. Both of these apps have clip launching. Obviously Reaper doesn't. So if Reaper supports it, something like Clip Launcher won't be available. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what other companies get on to this standard. Reaper was very quick to adapt clap support, only a couple months. But yeah, we'll see. I could see Ableton joining this, but maybe not. Maybe they want to stay proprietary. I highly doubt that Pro Tools or Nuendo will get onto this, but you never know. So yeah, Bitwig and Presonus doing something cool. It's nice to see companies working together to create a new standard, and hopefully it works as well as Clap did for, you know, getting companies interested and onboarding that new technology quickly. So speaking of Pro Tools, they've got this new Sketch app for iPad. It integrates with Pro Tools, and it's a clip launcher. So here it is running on iPad. And so it's got a little mixer with EQ and other effects. But yeah, it's a clip launcher similar to Ableton, Bitwig, and other apps where you've got a bunch of loops that you can record in or drop in, and then there's buttons to play everything in a scene, in a column, or in a like horizontal or vertical, non-linear approach to music making. So this is actually a free app. If you've got an iPad, you will be able to use this. It integrates with the free version of Pro Tools, which is quite limited, but this is a nice way to expand that. It also has wave format exporting, and it can record audio and MIDI. So might be useful. I don't know if I'm going to check it out personally. I don't know. Maybe I'll get my son to try it out, and we'll get the baby review of it. See if it's worth it. I still don't like Avid, but I think this is a pretty cool, not innovation, but something extra, something they're adding on for free, which adds, you know, a feature that's not available directly in Pro Tools. Cosmic Simon says, I have it. It looks great 8 years ago. Yeah, I mean, back then they were still bundling Ableton Live Lite, so that's how you would get the clip launcher sort of thing. But yeah, you know, maybe it's pretty cool. There's a lot of other iPad apps that have the clip launching thing, but none of them like will go back and forth between Pro Tools. So that's pretty much it for like good news. Bad news, Epic Games has sold Bandcamp to a company called Songtradr. It's barely been a year since they bought Bandcamp. The other thing that Epic did was lay off 900 game devs, which is pretty shitty. And yeah, I mean, not much to say about that. Like, that's a lot of jobs. And Epic seemed to be like a company that you could kind of trust and rely on. It was stable because it's a big company. But yeah, they just laid off like whole studios, and everyone is pissed off about that. And this is not long after the, what do you call it? The that whole thing with Unity. Lots of bad stuff happening in the games industry all the time. There's nothing good to say about this. There's no upside to any of this. Epic buying Bandcamp was like kind of weird, not really a good fit, but people were kind of open to it because it seemed to be like stable. More bad news. Moog Music, they were recently bought by InMusic, which is not private equity, but basically, or maybe it is private equity, but like kind of a conglomeration. They buy up all these other companies, and then generally the products kind of suffer. There's lots of cost-cutting measures and things like that. But they ended up laying off a lot of the Moog staff from the factories in the U.S. And so some of the products are going to be made in China, Taiwan, those places. And they do say they're going to do some stuff in the factories in the US. This is not a good thing for the industry. This is kind of shitty. Moog is like one of the like highest regarded companies. They make good products, expensive products, but they're well made in the US, all this stuff. And this is not a good trend. So yeah, really sucks. But that's about it for the news, unless you guys saw something that I missed this week or over the past couple weeks. Love to know. More good news would be wonderful, but there's not a lot right now. Steven, surprised you don't get Ableton Live Lite bundled in Happy Meals. It's in everything else. Let's go into question time. So on the topic of the Daw Project thing, when was the last time that you tried to move a project from one app to another? And how did you do it? For me, it doesn't happen that often. And I would most likely do just stems or frozen tracks, or even just a mix down, honestly. If there was some app that couldn't get things transferred through. Stems are kind of the reliable way. The XML format for Resolve or Final Cut, I guess, that works as well through Vordio. The name Songtradr does sound a bit ominous. Is there a way to dedicate a track to record master output? Not a track, but there are ways of doing it. So the master track is like the last thing in the chain other than the monitoring effects chain. If we want a real-time like render of that, or what do you call it? If we want like a tape recording of the entire session as it's open, there is this function called Save Live Output to Disk, and this is in the File menu. And so here we can choose where to save it, what to call it, which format. You can save it only when playing or recording. You can have it stop automatically. You can also not save if it's silent, basically. Explore these settings. This is sort of like your backup recorder while the session's running. The other thing is the script. We seem to talk about it every week. Global sampler is something that can be put into the master track or the monitoring effects chain. And this is a 1 minute long, constantly running loop. So this saves me constantly for some cool sounds happens while I wasn't recording, or I played something well, but I wasn't recording. This is sort of like an audio backup thing, a 1 minute running loop that I can just grab and then drop into the timeline and see there was nothing there, but it still created a WAV file. That's been invaluable. I love that thing. And those are the two things that come to mind right now. There are also plugins that you can get that will record anywhere in the chain. I guess the other thing is you can have one project tab record the output of another. I forget how to do that exactly. You make a new project tab, and then this one would get a input of Loopback, and then this track, this project, you would set an output to Loopback 1 and 2. And so as long as both of these are recording, or one of these is recording, and you enable run background projects, you should be able to record into a second tab everything's coming out of the master. So there you go. There's like 3 ways to do it. Hopefully that answers your question. Everyone is buying Behringer clones rather than Moog Authentic. I did. It's such a big difference in price. I also like that there's effects built in on the Poly D. You probably can't see it too well, but there's like a built-in like Juno chorus. There's the sequencer and there's a distortion section on the Poly D. And none of the Moog devices have those sort of features. So for me, it's worth it. I really like the Poly D. I think it's a good synth regardless of price and everything. Somewhat underwhelming in terms of what features there are. The amounts of sounds you can get with just a basic subtractive synth with a single filter and things like that. But it's still, I think it's still very good. Good features for the price. Not like an ultimate synth, but you would have the same limitations or more with a real mini Moog. So at least you save $3,000 or more. What features for music making would be good for Reaper or to see in Reaper 7 besides more virtual instruments? Like a clip launching sort of workflow, I would like to see built in with good integration. I think Playtime does a good job with that, but it's an additional purchase. It's a whole new sort of software that's working around things that could be more better integrated into Reaper directly. It would be nice to just have more virtual instruments, like a better like dedicated drum sampler. Preset management would be nice to have in Reaper as well. What's that app called? Actually, there's a few different things. Like there's Complete Control, and there's the Analog Lab. There's something else. But you can like search for presets, and it will search within many different plugins at once. And so something like that for Reaper's built-in stuff would be cool. Other than that, there are some good things in Reaper 7 coming out. Nothing game-changing, nothing too new and unique, sorry to say, but I feel like if you're not making music with the tools available already, then some new thing is probably not going to make the difference for you. Milia says, the problem I had with Behringer clone was the noise floor was super high and the tuning stability wasn't too great. Sounds all right though. Yeah, mine, I wouldn't say the noise floor is high. The overall output's actually pretty low in general, unless you're using the external volume feedback loop trick, and then it gets really loud. But you can't really do that without getting the squelches and stuff. Tuning stability, I think, is okay. It just takes a second, compare with a tuning plugin or something like that, and then it works. My Moog Mavis is way harder to keep in tune or to use in a musical context. So I'm happier with the Behringer than with the Moog, to be honest. So the last time you tried switching DAWs was when you first started using Reaper, printing stems and reorganizing them in a new DAW. Project tabs are a lifesaver, and the fact that you can copy paste tracks from one session to another. Yeah, I love those features. Yeah, when you go to another DAW that doesn't have project tabs, it's like such a pain. Especially if you have like a really bad short-term memory like I do, or ADHD or whatever you want to call it. I'm constantly like, well, if I have to like switch apps or switching project tabs sometimes, I'll just forget what I was doing. And at least it's not having to completely reload the project again to grab that thing, close the project, open the new thing, and then paste it. Just a quick tab between That's been amazing. How would someone move iPad, GarageBand, MIDI tracks into Reaper? iPad, GarageBand most likely is easiest to transfer to the computer version of GarageBand, and then you have a bit more export options there. Been a while since I've done anything like that. My son uses GarageBand on iPad quite a lot. I don't really let him touch my Mac, so we haven't really done too much with that. Anything you make on the iPad can be opened up in computer version. You just need to like download your sample packs and stuff. GarageBand doesn't have a lot of like export options that I could find, like exporting MIDI. It's fairly limited. It has good features for within the scope of what it can do, but if you're a professional editor or recording engineer, you quickly find things that you are missing. Never thought about using the Loopback? Yeah, that's been implemented for quite a while. I did a video on that. I think there's like a Reaper update. I didn't really use it until I made that video. Reaper 6.69. There wasn't really any like new additions, but they did tweak the Loopback. You can now have 512 channels. There's a link to the blog for that if you haven't really seen that. But once Loopback is enabled, you can just use it as I showed you. Hardware send, and you can pick it up into another project tab or anywhere within Reaper, really. Blog buddies? Yeah, I don't think we really have a name for the community. I don't think we're that close yet to have nicknames, but that would make us, that would strengthen the bond, I think. To add, I'd like Reaper to add more built-in MIDI features, hopefully a clip launcher. Yep, yeah, I agree. More like there are some real-time MIDI processors that you can do. But I think Cubase does that really well. Cubase also had a software version of the Tenori On, if I'm not mistaken. And that is a neat way to make music. So like let's say a 64 button like LED button grid, where you can just play in different octaves and stuff, and not the left to right or up and down piano roll version, but like having all the octaves of a keyboard visible, and they snap to key. And I think that's just a more interesting way of working sometimes for certain things. Bleeps and bloop music. You don't see those used too often anymore, but back in the day, back in 2009 maybe, that was a pretty big deal. I should really put in some time to learn playtime as well, but this week, Reaper 7, the past couple days, I've just been doing that. As soon as I got the last video edited, I did 2 days of Reaper 7 testing and lots of bug reports and reading the forum, all that stuff. It's hard to use Reaper for the first time. So I'm trying to use all stock settings, and it's like I constantly run into things that make no sense to me. And so I bring them up on the forum, but ultimately I just change the preference. Do I use the Maschine plugin? I've never used the Maschine plugin. I helped someone with the Maschine plugin in a one-on-one lesson, but I found it kind of confusing, the hardware and software thing. There's lots of things on the hardware I would expect to just work with Reaper as if it was a normal MIDI controller, but it didn't. It only worked through the Maschine software. And that's something that's hard to learn without being hands-on with it, especially with a time limit. Maschine seems pretty cool. The whole system is really a DAW in itself. Integrating with Reaper, it's somewhat tricky, I would think. Just deciding which things do you record within Maschine and which things do you record linearly in the timeline. I don't know. Going back to the hardware synth discussion, the thing that I'm most confused about or personally need some help with is syncing things like LFOs and the sequencer on the Poly D to Reaper. I haven't really figured out a good way of doing that. I can send MIDI to it, but it doesn't seem to sync tempo and things like that automatically. Kind of a bit harder to work with it that way. So I'm just kind of using it as an audio input right now, or as a MIDI controller, but never both at the same time. Produce Like a Pro just sent me an email about a start-to-end update to our much-loved Ultimate Reaper chorus with Adam Steele. Adam Steele is doing an update to the chorus for Reaper 7. Seems a bit early to record that, but okay. Yeah, I know Adam's leaving YouTube. It's interesting. He's going off to work at Audient. That's cool. He's got a way out. Fantastic. I'm stuck here. It's the only thing I can do right now, and I'm not even good at it. What am I going to do? I can't imagine working for someone else, like having to like get up early and go to work, because it's been so long. I've been working from home since 2010. So pretty long time. And I did apply to a studio to work at a studio once, but I didn't get a call back. So I don't know. I think that's an exception. I could see myself working for a studio, being a bit miserable about it, but probably if it was slow or I'm not working on the kind of music that I enjoy. Or if they're really struggling for money, it'd be kind of miserable, but I'm sure I could get into it, but it's just been so long. Yeah, Chris, the Reaper 7 update is not a huge, it's not going to be a huge change. I think it's too soon to make a whole course about it, because it's in the release candidate stage, but I feel like they've got a lot of work still. I don't know how much Adam has updated that course prior to this announcement. Last I checked, there wasn't even like a list of what lessons were available, but just sort of a promise that they would update it. I'm out of touch with it. I haven't looked it up in a while. You're working for a hotel chain call center as a day job, so it is so miserable. Yeah, I imagine. Yeah. Very lucky to scrape by making videos about things that I'm interested on the internet, and people are somewhat interested in it as well. That's pretty cool. Do I still use the X-Touch? Which configuration? I still use the X-Touch. I don't have it on my desktop. I switched it to the drawer. So it's here. Not the perfect option. I gotta like make a custom drawer or something. And it's impossible to film it this way. But like I have this dedicated camera just to show the X-Touch. I'm using the CSI configuration for that. Is there an equivalent to a Chord Track from Cubase? I don't think there was. I think people have been trying to make something, but there isn't anything that's super good for that, where you basically select the chord and then the notes in the MIDI below that change. I don't think that's implemented. Right now you can have like labels for things and empty MIDI items with item notes, things like that, but I don't think anything that automatically transposes the section below. It'd be cool to do that, but I don't think that's implemented yet. I think we're gonna wrap up the Q&A section. I just wanna give a quick mention to a script from SockMonkey. It's called MOM Toggle Mouse Modifier Toggle Action Generator. This is from SockMonkey. I don't wanna say that I inspired him to make this, but it seemed to come out around the time that I was having problems with some stuff. So this is a free script, and what this does is create presets for all of your mouse modifier settings. And once you have a preset created, you can also build toggle or one-shot actions to set your mouse modifiers within custom actions or scripts. So I use this to rebuild my fast and normal edit modes. So this came up a while ago. Let's start from the beginning. Mouse modifiers, you know what these are, right? These are whatever happens when you hold shift or shift command, left drag, left click, double click, etc. There is an import export thing here built in, but you got to open the preferences and then do it. So the MOM script, this allows you to load those presets from here. And I've got a couple different presets. And after you make a preset, you can build toggle actions or one-shot actions. There's a couple of settings here as well. This is mostly for appearance. And there's the filter here, so you can limit the preset to just a certain scope. And once you've created an action, you can also update them here. I've talked about this before, and Mike Robinson has also talked about fast edit mode for editing drums. I don't know if Mike is still in the chat, but if he is, he might need to pay attention to this going into Reaper 7. Mouse modifiers, we kind of know them. It's a bit of a pain to change these things while we're in the middle of working. So in the action list, there's these actions for setting default mouse modifier. There's a few hundred of these, but these are going away in Reaper 7. Each of these actions just changes the default action for each of these categories for dragging, clicking, things like that. If you want to use these in custom actions in Reaper 6, no problem. Reaper 7, it's going to be a problem. So this script is going to resolve that issue, or should. Let's find my fast edit mode. Custom fast edit mode. Split selected items edit cursor with crossfade on left. Enable auto crossfade on split. Enable auto crossfades. Disable snapping, and then John's fast edit mode mouse map, which is just recalling this preset for the entire mouse modifiers. I didn't use the filter here to limit it. Fast edit mode, I'll enable it here by right-clicking on my fast edit toolbar button, which I can't find. There it is. So fast edit mode, it will split at the top of an item. It will slide the contents of an item at the bottom, and if I'm dragging at the top, it moves it. And if I have a crossfade, I can shift drag to slide that crossfade around. That's what fast edit mode does. And then normal edit mode puts things back to normal, where I click on the top or the bottom and it moves. So essentially, it's a shortcut so that when I click on an item, it splits it there with the crossfade on the left, and then I can slide the contents of the item. It's kind of a fancy editing tool that I use. Made popular by Adam Wathan years ago, but sort of tweaked to my preferences, and as Reaper updated, made it better. I mean, that's a workflow that I've been using for like 13 years. So it's kind of important to me that I can keep using it. Fast edit mode runs that series of actions every time I left click. And normal action puts it back to default. What it's doing these days, instead of setting the mouse modifiers for the, left click, default, item, whatever it is. I forget what it was exactly. But setting the mouse modifiers from these separate actions, it's now just loading these two presets. Loading this preset or loading this preset in the mouse modifiers. This is something that I might also need for MIDI editor, but I think I've resolved it with scripting separately. So yeah, I will put in a link in the description to this script where you can get that. It's in Repack. I'll put that in the chat as well. I think this is going to be something that's useful for Reaper 7, or really just anytime you want to manage your mouse modifiers. GemX, why are they going away? So I guess you mean the mouse modifier default actions. Just that there's like 1,000 actions, and there's sort of like a burden of keeping them maintained. Most new users don't ever need to change their mouse modifiers frequently, like within actions. So relying on scripting or some other tool, well, I guess scripting is still the way that we're doing it. Either writing scripts or using a mouse modifier manager like the one I just showed, that's going to be the way to handle that going forward. There's also one Reaper 7 feature to do it, but it's not going to cover all situations, I don't think. And especially not for MIDI. I think it's just to clean up the action list. I use a paint and pencil tool and MIDI editor. Most modifiers aren't going away, just those default actions in the action list. So if you use different modifiers for paint and pencil tool, then that's fine. But if you're using the same modifier for both of those and an action to toggle them, then you'll probably need that script. But if you're using like Shift for paint and Command Shift for pencil or default for pencil, then you're fine. It's really just the function for creating toggles or changing the modifiers in the middle of actions is what's being taken away. Does anyone know what happened to IDDQ Sound? Probably a month or two ago, I emailed, said that we missed him and everything, and got a new job. He had a hard drive crash or something like that. I lost a bunch of work, and he just needed a break. So he'll be back when he is ready, I think. So right now he's just focusing on work. It would be nice if Reaper could separate stereo audio into separate stems, drums, bass, vocals, or is there a script that can use AI to automatically do it? Interesting question. There isn't anything that I have seen for that. There are a lot of companies doing that right now. FL Studio, there was a plugin, was it Acon Digital has something like that? There are online tools for that, but nothing built into Reaper, not even in Reaper 7 that I have seen. I don't know how much the Reaper devs like AI-based tools. I don't think I've seen any comment on that stuff from them. But if you have FL Studio, wouldn't take long to dump that in and send it over to Reaper. What Reaper 7 feature are you most excited about? There's a lot of things I'm impressed with. Right now, I'm focused on what they need to change, but for the best possible first impression for people. Yeah, I don't even know how much I should even say. I like the new take comping feature. I think it still could be more user-friendly. And as like a audio editor, I like things a certain way, especially with crossfades. And right now, they're not the way that I would do it. And it doesn't seem to be a way to do it exactly as I want. Schwa and I were talking about it yesterday, and we'll see. When's it going to come out? When it's ready. Actually, it might come out before it's ready, but I think I don't think it's ready. You can get the release candidates on the forum right now. So they're close. The theme needs work. The theme scripting definitely needs work. Yeah, I think now that it's in release candidate, there's a lot more people testing it more thoroughly. Like I didn't touch the pre-releases really. I have been testing it more closely now. Did a completely new install of Reaper 7 to test as a first-time user to see like if things make sense at all. I'm gonna have to do a new fresh start series, I think, because yeah, there's a lot of the built-in stuff. The default settings are still not optimized. There are better things. Do I plan on updating my tutorials on the website for Reaper 7? Yeah, I don't think I'm going to take down any old ones, but Fresh Start series might get a redo. I really should make it a course. I will definitely be covering every update, and I will also be doing tutorials for new users. A new Fresh Start series or something like that. And I'm sure Kenny's going to have 1,000 videos as well. Right now, I don't want to make any videos until Reaper 7's out. And then I don't know what I'm going to do, really. Do I just book a hotel room and just make videos for a week or what? Right now, it's the calm before the storm. It's going to be a lot of work. Reaper 6 release was kind of stressful. I was under a lot of pressure to get news out quickly. I'd love to take a vacation. You can't on YouTube. You really can't. There's a lot of really weird things as soon as you open Reaper. Like if you open it for the first time, not even counting like the multiple things that Apple will stop you from doing right at the start. Like your microphone's not going to work. You won't be able to record. You might not be able to assign keyboard shortcuts. You won't be able to install extensions. And what else? That might be it. And then some of the Reaper defaults are just unchanged since the Windows XP days before like HD monitors and stuff like that. So like it opens up really small still. So everyone has to like resize, and then sometimes you resize something and a thing disappears on you because of some bug that's been there for 6 years. I'm trying to get them to solve those things just so that there's a great first impression from the first time opening it, whether you're a new user or professional. All right, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining the stream. It's a shorter one, but what are you going to do? Hopefully I've answered your questions adequately, and we can do this again next week. Thank you all. See you later. Yeah, join the Discord. Have a great weekend.